my gosh. Live on Instagram. So what you don't know, dear Instagram viewer, is we're trying some new shit tonight. I am currently trying to go live here with you, beautiful viewer, and then I'm also right here. I've got my laptop. Hi, laptop. My laptop is sitting on top of my snare drum, and I've got a new program called Riverside.fm loaded up, and I've got Zac Watson live there. I think we're simultaneously requesting each other on Instagram. There we go. Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing? Let me move this. Hold on. Why is it giving me a notice that I'm going live with myself? That's so weird. Can you hear me?
I don't know. The wonders of the internet. Yeah, I can hear you. The wonders of the internet.
I know. And speaking of the wonder, you're literally in a completely different hemisphere.
I am. Different time zone. It's midday here, and it's sunny and freezing cold, and
yeah.
It's a vibe for sure.
What do you consider freezing cold as an Australian? Because I know I have a different feeling about it as a Chicagoan.
Okay, so here's where we start to run into a math problem, because I'm going to say it in Celsius, and wait,
I've got my laptop. I can do the math.
All right.
I can convert it. Holy shit! Look at us, technology.
If only there was a magical piece of machinery that could tell us these things. It was 8 degrees Celsius here this morning, which, if my math is right, is like minus 420,000 in Fahrenheit.
Pretty close. It's
not bad, right?
Not bad. That's pretty good math for off the top of your head. It's apparently 46.4. That's cold. I mean, that's chilly.
That's cold.
It's cold. I would have my winter jacket on for that.
It was cold enough for my dog to have to wear her Hawaiian skivvy thing that I was showing you earlier. Yeah. So that's how I judge how cold it is by how much clothing my dog has to wear.
I think that it's wonderful that she is such a fan of Hawaiian prints. My dog Caesar, he was a big plaid guy. Like, they gravitate towards certain stuff. He liked plaid. It's just a fact.
You know what? You can't tell a dog what a dog's taste is. There's nugget of information number one. Anybody who came onto this thinking that they were going to get like some sort of life-changing conversation is probably like, what are they talking about?
What are they, fucking dog shirts? This is what we're here for, is dog shirts? But hey,
get into the deep
Hello,
stuff.
I Am Human. Hello, I Am Human?
It is.
Hello, I Am Human with a dog.
Yes. Hello, I am dog with a Hawaiian shirt.
I would also watch that show. Does she have her own Instagram?
I think a lot of people would watch that.
Does
Zoe have her own?
Yeah.
She might. I'm not sure.
You haven't made one.
I'll have to find out. I haven't made one, no.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, you were totally right about the video being funky when we were going live on both, since we're testing this stuff out. That was a good call.
Are we getting delays, or?
I think you're just pixely, so your face is pixeled out. You look fine on the other thing.
Yeah. Pixelating my face on Instagram is actually probably doing me a favor. Just the mask of, we're just going to help this guy out by blurring him just a bit. Just, smooth out all the inconsistencies. It's great.
Your whole face is offensive. Instagram just blurred it all out. It's all obscene.
I don't blame it whatsoever. Those algorithms.
Evil stuff.
Evil stuff.
So other than helping me fix tech gear, what were you, Zac Watson, doing prior to the show this afternoon?
Really, really nerdy bass stuff. So I'm on, this is going to make everybody fall asleep. I'm going to tell you anyway. I'm doing a string deep dive.
Yeah.
And it's just the most nerdiest crap on the face of the earth, because ultimately it just doesn't matter. I'm only doing it for my own interest. So
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying bass strings.
What
Snooze
has been
first.
your finding so far? Are you doing it on your upright or on your electric bass?
On my electric.
Are you
On
going
my
between
electric.
different brands, or are you doing like round wounds versus flat wounds? Now I'm
Round,
curious.
the round and flat round thing is what I'm going between. Mainly because I only ever really take one bass out when I play live, which is that white one that you see in every single photo.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to cover quite a lot of ground with that. So it's kind of like, what is going to be the thing that can provide the most sort of tonal flexibility whilst also sounding good. So I was trying like a bunch of
Have
rounds
you
and a bunch of flats and all that.
do you have you found a winner?
Yeah, yeah. It's basically the same thing I've been using for the past like 2 years. I was just like, nah, nothing's gonna beat this. Whatever. Which are I don't have the packet. It's DR Sunbeams for anybody who is at home who cares about this stuff remotely. So you know, whatever.
You have it's even more expensive for you to test stuff out because I feel like as a drummer, it's like to test out a drum head, it's at least $15. But if I'm gonna do it like on like for my snare drum, but if I do it on my toms, then I got to do both of them. Then it's like $30. I almost never switch up my bass drum head because if I do, that's like $40. So yeah, you're
Yeah,
like $40 a pop.
I am $40 a pop, and so the flats I was trying, I had a couple of sets around, but I bought like a really heavy gauge like set of Diodario chromes, and they cost me like
Mm-hmm.
$100, and I had them on for about 2 seconds, and I was like, this is just not going to work. Buy $100. Oh well,
Yeah.
whatever. So if anybody wants to buy like a slightly used set of Diodario chromes, I have a set that I'll sell you.
Do
You
you have
know.
Craigslist in Australia?
Yeah, I'll just jump on Facebook. I'll just hit up one of my bass player nerd mates and be like, "Hey, you want to buy some? You want to buy some strings? You want to buy some chromes? Take them off my hands. See you later."
Yeah.
That's how it'll go. You know.
So true story about how ignorant I was when I was a kid and started playing bass. So I started playing electric guitar at 12. That's my first instrument, and I still have it. And my brother had a friend who had a bass guitar, and
Mm.
I really wanted his bass, so I traded him my original Nintendo for it, and I got the bass. And it had flat wounds on it, but I didn't know what those were. So I was like, wow, Mike's strings are really old because they're smooth. Like, he
Yeah.
must be playing these forever. So I just put flat wounds
Yeah.
back on. I still have my first guitar and I still have my bass for Nintendo.
There you go.
So there
Bass
you
for
go.
Nintendo, eh? That's
So one of
that's
the,
an interesting.
I guarantee he doesn't still have that fucking Nintendo. So I think I won.
I think you won.
One of the things that you were telling me the other day that you really dig is going back into people's old catalogs, like finding their earliest stuff, the real good, like raunchy, they're just starting out kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What lives in your early project vault that you're hesitant to want people to ever hear?
Oh, I don't necessarily know that there's anything that I'm hesitant to want anybody to hear. There's there's a lot of video of me playing in a progressive rock band that is interesting. That if anybody was to watch, they'd be like, "This is not the same person whatsoever." Like with my, I was just talking to a friend of
Right.
mine about this the other day, where it was like, you know, I'd rock into a venue with like my 1,000 watt stack and my 6 string bass, and it was up really high, and you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, and I was talking to you about, yeah, yes, very much so.
Yeah.
And I was talking,
Right.
and it was all like, it was all really, really bad, like Dream Theater impressions, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
It was. I always used to. I think of it now fondly as dream theater, but with people who didn't do the legwork. So you know
Right. They didn't put in the time at
that
Berkeley.
didn't put in the time. No. So there's that. There's an album. There is an album that I did with a local guy about 10 years ago that I has one song on there where I actually played a guitar solo on it, and I'm not a great guitar player. And
Yeah.
that one, if that ever came out, if anybody had actually ever listened to that, I'd probably be like, yeah, I'm not a guitar player. Whatever. I sort of
Sorry,
worked it out.
guys.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I was subbing for the actual guitar player, but yeah,
How
I
old
just
were you when you were playing in prog rock bands?
oh, geez, 20 maybe 19 or 20, like a
Wow, you
young.
were a baby.
I
Yeah.
was I was a wee child doing that, and it's because I was still in music school. Like when I was
Hmm.
when I because I went basically straight from like high school into music school, and so I was still kind of working out what I liked to play, and
Hmm.
I think just by happenstance of being in music school and having to be pushed, sort of you having your technical proficiency pushed, I got really into music with a heavy technical proficiency. So I got super into like
Right.
Billy Sheehan and Victor Wooten and all those kinds of people who I have now haven't listened to in about 5 years. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, prog rock was where it was at
Oh yeah,
a
that
lot.
was so probably about the same age. That was my jam. I have a crystal clear memory of it was the summer after I graduated high school and I was working at my mom's office. And I was back when like BMI and Columbia House were like a thing here in the States where you'd like
Mm.
pay $1 and you'd get 12 CDs and then you just like had to remember to cancel your membership. But I had finally gotten um Dream Theater's what is it, Falling into Infinity, that record. And
Oh yeah,
because
yep.
I was just seeing everything about Mike Portnoy in Modern Drummer magazine, and I remember I was driving back from my lunch break, and I had just pulled into the parking spot, and it goes into this crazy bridge section of the first song, and I just sat there with my foot on the brake, staring at my CD player like witchcraft was happening, because I'd never heard anybody play like that. And
Yeah.
that was it. Like my Pearl Masters that I have back here that I bought in 2001. So yeah, I was 21. Um, it's really a 7 piece kit. It's like 3 rack toms, 2 floor toms. I had like all the cymbals. I gotta find some pictures of the kit all set up. I never parted with the excess drums because like I can't break up the set even if I like never
Yeah.
use them. But you know, I haven't touched most of them in years. So,
Yeah.
I think
I
everybody,
kind of.
you go through a prog rock phase.
Yeah, I think especially when if you're in a situation where there's an expectation of technical proficiency, I think you sort of have to do it. And you and I have spoken about this before, where it's almost approached like sports. Like it's like,
Hmm.
how fast can I play? How complicated can I make it? I think everybody kind of
Hmm.
goes through that, especially if
Yeah.
you're a music school person,
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
and I have so much respect for cats that can play like that. One of my absolute favorite people on Instagram is Eric Imprada. He is absolutely insane. He plays for Night Verses and Fever 333, I think it's called. I'm probably totally
Hmm.
screwing those up. Sorry, Eric. But he's a total sport drummer, insanely fast, insanely accurate. He like jumps off of his drum throne and like can spin and do backflips and all. He's amazing and I love him, but that's just not who I am. I remember like reading Modern Drummer magazine as a teenager and just really trying to absorb what all these cats that have been playing forever said, and they every one of them always have the same thing. It's the same thing you and I both just said. It's like when I was young, I was playing all the notes and I was doing all the things, and then I learned to play for the song. And I just said, "Oh, okay, like so I need to like do that." And so that was one of the things that I started doing very early on. So it was very conflicting for me to be like obsessed with prog rock and also trying to serve the song, but I think it paid off in the long run. And you do that now because you're like playing country music, nice and chill.
Yeah, well, chill-ish, you know.
Chill-ish.
So,
Well, you
some of
gotta
it.
walk.
Yeah, I think the thing is that it's actually kind of a nice thing to be because whenever I tell people, oh, I play country music, everybody I think gravitates to like rhinestones and that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot closer to it's a lot closer to rock than what
Mm-hmm.
people kind of I think initially think. There's a big love here for like Jason Isbell and Lucinda Williams and Drive By Truckers and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
much more rock orientated kind of
Mm-hmm.
country playing. So there's still some rock chop in there,
Yeah.
which is fun. But it's much more, and we've spoken about this at length. Whereas 15 years ago, the goal was to play as many notes as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
My goal now is to play as less as humanly possible. As less as
Mm-hmm.
humanly possible, is that whatever?
As little.
Like as little as possible. Thank you. And just try and get out of the way
Mm-hmm.
as much as humanly possible. Like I always refer back to John McVie from Fleetwood
Mm-hmm.
Mac as just like. I mean, you want to talk about a person that plays not a lot, but everything just absolutely slaps. Like, oh my God, that guy.
So good.
As I stare wistfully into, the distance.
Yeah, you totally just had a moment. We all watched that happen. It was pretty great.
Yeah, you can all enjoy that.
Daydreamy eyes. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's funny that I thought of you instantly when I saw Dave Elitch had posted that thing about sport drumming today, and that I
Oh,
shared in my
yeah.
Instagram stories. Like you and I both have such an affinity for him because he's very much he's an insanely technically proficient drummer. That's
Yep.
all about playing a groove, and that's the jam to me. Like that's what I think. I think you the whole reason to learn all the chops is so you can play like that. For me, because music is all about the emotion for me.
Yeah, but he's a really, really good example of somebody who's I think sort of everybody knows him from that big video that he did with the Mars Volta where he's just absolutely destroying the kit. But
Mm-hmm.
he will be the first person to say that it's like none of that matters.
Mm-hmm.
I am there to serve the song, and the chops is only really vocabulary for me to make the music better.
Perfectly said.
He's actually yeah, well, he's a super inspiring dude like that. Like he's a guy who is well and truly up there with one of the best drummers on the planet, and
Mm-hmm.
yet is totally has the musical maturity to go. It's actually not about me,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is why he's also so popular as a teacher. Like everybody wears those t-shirts, those like get out of your own way t-shirts,
Mm-hmm.
that he sells. I think, I think that his philosophy on music and technique and how those two, interrelate is really, really fascinating and super inspiring. He's actually one of the musicians who I'm like, that guy knows what's going on.
Yeah, and I mean, I found Dave Elitch because my favorite drummer, Zach Lynn from Jimmy World, had started taking lessons with him. And so
Yeah.
Zach was posting about him. And it's like, all right, well, if my dude's taking lessons with him, then he's got to be great. But I mean, it's neat to see somebody that's more in our generation, like being the person that huge, very successful drummers are like going and getting lessons from. I think that's super neat. I'm a total nerd for
Yeah,
that.
his client list is insane. Like it's every sort of major touring drummer has taken a session with him at least once. And
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because the other thing that get super inspired by him about is that he has found a thing that is uniquely his, which is
Mm-hmm.
I am going to focus on this style of learning that is highly about body mechanics and
Mm-hmm.
proper use of your meat vehicle essentially,
Yeah.
and really really own that niche. And I
Uh-huh.
think that has I find that really really interesting, especially as like a musician trying to navigate the modern music industry. Like he said it before, he's like,
Mm-hmm.
if I wasn't teaching, I'd be doing a day job somewhere. So good on him.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, I mean, it's such a, whether it's the life coach world or the music world, I mean, there is something to be said for having your niche and doing it great. And I think that that's one of the things that I've had to start honing in on, like as a producer and an engineer. It's like, if someone is hiring you, they're hiring you because of that sound that you bring. So just do that. You can try new things and do something different, as because evolving is important, but like you got to be you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the dream. Like, I think for me, artistically, that is what I sort of strive for, is to like when somebody picks me for a recording or a tour, I want it to be because uh, my skill sets are the right ones for that gig. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? It's like they've identified that what it is that I do will enhance what they do, and so that's why I'm there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
kind of that's the ultimate goal, I think, for me. That's definitely what I strive for anyway.
Hell yeah, I'm all about that. Like that was so perfectly said too, because I think that one of the things that you touched on a second ago that is really interesting, and I remember I had done one other episode where that you had told me you were interested in the concept, but like there's this weird stigma with musicians and artists of all different kinds about having a day job, and
Hmm.
to the point that I can at least speak from some personal experience. Sometimes because I've been a full-time musician and that was my only job, and that was great, but it also sucked because we were like living with my ex's dad and for a lot of it, and like it it's like, yeah, I'm a full-time musician, but also we're technically broke as shit also. And but that's what you do in your 20s, that's fine. But like they can
Yeah.
be feel like shameful to like say you have a day job, unless it's like a cool day job like working at a bar. But like if you have a
Yep.
desk day job like I had and like you have, that can feel weird. So like how do you kind of wrestle with that? Do you admit to your day job in musical circles, or are you just like kind of all not talk about it?
My okay. Get ready for a rant. This is what the people are after. They want the rant. Here it comes.
I
So
love
my
I love your rants.
yeah, yeah. As a side note, I totally had a friend of mine message me today. Go, if you don't give an expletive over caffeine run rant today, I'm not interested. I'm like, well, just hold on, and here it comes. So my view on musicians with day jobs has changed, like pretty
Yeah.
substantively, right? When I was in my 20s, and this it's also changed in line with what my goals are and my definition of success is. So my
Hmm.
so when I was in my 20s, I wanted to be
Hmm.
the best bass player on earth. Real simply, right? All the sessions, I wanted to be on the cover of Bass Player magazine. I wanted to do all that,
Hmm.
and anything short of that was failure, right?
Yep.
And I
Live
carried
that.
that, yeah, yeah, and I carried that for a really, really long time. And so
Hmm.
anything that wasn't music, I sort of was like, well, clearly the reason why I have to work at Apple or work at Vodafone or do teaching or whatever is because I'm just not good enough as a musician. Now the funny
Yeah.
thing is that as I've gotten older and as the style of music that I've played has changed, and and as I've gotten actually like better work and more work and all that kind of stuff, I mean, the reality is, at least here, like I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, of all the people I know who are on the pretty decent gigs here,
Mm-hmm.
all of them have a multifaceted stream of income. Like
Right.
that's that's just the reality, especially
Yeah.
in the Australian market, because you're dealing with a country of 30 million people. So it's not like there's like all my sort of fellow bass playing sidemen. I mean, they're all teachers. Like they all have teaching gigs. Most
Right.
of them do anyway. My favorite guitarist in the country, which is a guy named Damien Caffarella, who's a dear friend of mine. He's still
Mm-hmm.
like he has a day job that is related to music. He's a record producer, but he's not making. That's really what his gig is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that stigma now I find really really weird,
Yeah.
and somewhat unwarranted. Your capacity to rock up to a gig and just kick it in the balls has nothing to do with what you do 9 to 5. And in
Yeah.
fact, it's real funny. I've spoken to sort of high school kids who are about to go into the next phase of their sort of learning journey, and they go, "Oh, what
Mm-hmm.
piece of advice would you give?" And a lot of the time, I'm like, "Go and get a job."
Yeah.
Honestly, because
Yeah.
what I also find interesting is that people don't. A lot of musicians will deride the day job, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
also. We don't often talk about the benefits of it
Yeah.
all that much. Um, and there's definitely benefits to it.
Oh yeah.
Um, just in terms of you know I've seen musicians whose mental space has been totally chewed up with trying to balance the economics of art, which ultimately will affect your enjoyment and the output, um,
100%.
which is a problem that which is a problem that you can solve. Like it's very very easily solved by, like, I think if I had to drop my job now and go into full time music, I reckon I'd end up hating it.
Mm-hmm.
To be perfectly
Yeah.
honest, because I'd have to do a lot of gigs that I don't want to do. I'd have to be on the road perpetually, and even then,
Yeah.
it would be a very, very, very tight living experience, I think.
Exactly. That was my total experience. You know, when it was October of 2001. I quit my job at the internet back when it was a dial-up internet company.
I just have this
That's how
image
old I am.
of just a building that just has a big sign that says the internet, where everything was run.
I mean, it was kind of like that, except it said Coastal Net.
All right,
But
yeah, cool.
yeah, yeah, and it's a giant server room. But and a bunch of 20-year-olds that just told you to restart your computer, and we got high on our lunch break. It was great. But anyway, like I left that job in October 2001, and the only reason I was able to do that is because the band that I was in, we did covers and originals. So our day job, quote unquote, was playing other people's music. But in
Mm,
that 3 hour, we had to do like 3 hour, 1 hour sets usually in a night, which is great because then you could play your whole album worth of original material. But like it was such a mind fuck because we weren't really making that much money. I didn't necessarily want to be in a cover band, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, I still enjoy playing in cover bands. Not that I've done it in a while, but it's a lot of fun.
mm,
Um, but also like it didn't allow we never rehearsed. So we were never writing new material because we played so much.
yeah.
So the focus, if we needed to rehearse, it was like, oh, we need to learn that new Nickelback song that's really popular right now, and so it was like adding cover songs that were new so people would want to pay to come see us. And I'm not pooping on it because it was a really fun run in my life, but I missed so many like family engagements to go play for a bunch of people in a bar all night.
Mm,
And so like that was weird. Like I missed like weddings and funerals and all kinds of stuff to kind of not 100% be doing what I wanted to do.
yeah.
And then like then when it was time after we'd like done 3 tours in Korea, it was really that last tour in South Korea where I was just kind of like, I'm good. Like I had my own house by then. I had just started dating my girlfriend at the time. And it would just, I didn't want to do it anymore. It's like, I want to make music. I don't want to like just get paid to make music. I would rather
Yeah.
have a day job and like write and work on that. And that's what my old bass player Wick, who's been on the show, that's what we decided to do. Like the other cats in the band wanted to just keep playing cover songs and doing that thing. And to this day, that's basically like their kind of hired guns. Well, he is,
Yep.
and the singer. And Wick and I both have day jobs and still play music. And you
Yeah.
got to choose your path. I think there's no shame in the day job game.
I think I honestly think for a lot of like it's. I mean, it's just the reality. Like, I think it's just like, least of all, and God, when Victoria, which is the state I live in Australia, when we were in that sort of the throes of that really, really long COVID-related lockdown, boy, God, I was glad I had that job. Honestly, I was
Mm-hmm.
that, that was the job that I often deride. I was sitting there going, "Oh my God, thank God I've got this," because that economically that would have been super tight.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably just put a caveat on that whole statement though, going that the day job also works with my sort of chosen musical path, which
Mm-hmm.
is, musically what I do is very much like a service industry. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to have those large cuts of time to just sort of sit there and write songs, for instance.
Right.
I think if you were doing that sort of thing, that's where that's where you might run into some issues with the day job. But for what I do, where it's largely like, on any given week, it's you've got gigs Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday, and all you have to do to prepare for that is just learn a bunch of songs. It
Mm-hmm.
sort of works. So, you
Yeah.
know,
I think that's why retail was so appealing to me when I started working a regular day job, because after the band had broken up, I'd like managed a bar for a while, and that was ridiculous. I've talked about that before. And
mm,
but I started working for like this like home improvement store,
yep,
and retail was just perfect because at the time I was a less than 5 minute drive from my house to the store. So like at my lunch break, I'd go home, and that was the most productive I ever was writing. I was seeing someone who was like just totally amused for me at the time, and I was just because the relationship was tumultuous, because
as
that's
is
how that
always the
works.
case. As is
As is the
always the
case,
case.
have a little bit of emotional instability and you have lots to write about.
Yeah, you never hear
So
about the singer-songwriter whose whole album is inspired by like, oh, what'd you do? Oh, I just, putt around on the couch and drink tea.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
never
my
happens.
yeah, my wife and I are doing great.
Yeah,
That yeah,
super stable.
yeah, super stable. No, I wrote nothing when I got stable with Tanya. Nothing. It was a dry spell. But yeah, so like I would come home every day at my lunch break, and I would eat my lunch and like watch TV and play guitar, and I was just like constantly writing. So I think that was retail definitely helped with that. And so speaking of quarantine, you guys had a hardcore lockdown in
Yeah,
Australia.
yeah.
What was the situation there?
Um, so basically, all right. So basically, Australia sort of took. So this is a little bit of my opinion of it and some facts. So everybody take this with a grain of salt in Australia before you all leap down my throat. Australia took a pretty hardline stance that any sort of COVID outbreak
Hmm.
or existence in the community, they were pretty much going for like an elimination strategy, I think. And so what happened is that like Australia had done a bunch of early lockdowns, like sort of earlier in the year, like March, June, or stuff like that.
Hmm.
But then Victoria in particular were having a really really hard time where they were just getting like a bunch of cases per day, all that kind of stuff. Our contact tracing system was struggling to find everyone. And so they just locked the place down for like a good couple of months, and it was pretty tough. Like it was, you couldn't go further than 5K from your house. You could only leave your house to exercise once a day. Almost everything was shut. Yeah, it was pretty hectic. It worked because I don't know how much Australian news you get in the States, but Australia is relatively COVID free.
Yeah.
Like to the point of absurdity where it's like if a state gets one case and they don't know where it comes from, they snap lockdown states like it's going out of fashion. But yeah, which is real fun for trying to plan tours and things like that. We had a really really big festival here, which is the Byron Bay Blues Fest. Get cancelled, and by the time that they had locked the state down and opened it up, the guys from Blues Fest were still packing down everything. So
wow.
Yeah, so that's it, it's a I think what it is it's just a high level of risk aversion. I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think what's happening is that the government is looking at places like the States and India and all that kind of stuff and going, oh, we probably would not like to do that again. So so I got a lot of practice in. Boy, did I get a lot of practice in. That was interesting, and met a bunch of people on Instagram. Hey, how are you?
Hey, you.
Hey. Which has actually been really, really good, and that to some extent has actually really changed the way that I relate to social media, which has been good. It actually has utility now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty hectic.
Yeah, it's nice to not just go down the black doom scroll holes. And I had to get super deliberate about that probably around like June or July, because with everything that was going on between quarantine and all of the stuff going on here in the States from a social justice kind of standpoint, it was like,
Yep.
I needed to know all of that and I needed to absorb all of that. And it was like, okay, this one I'm going to take a step back from. Okay, I need to put more of this on my feed. And yeah, it's definitely, I think that social media is a great tool if you use it well. Otherwise, it can be something that just makes you feel like absolute garbage about yourself if you're not in a good place.
I've really, really tried to change my relationship with it. So very early on in the pandemic, I got really, really. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. I for some reason felt that I needed to really, really jump on the side of science and just be blasting people with like posts about how like anti-conspiracy theory posts basically.
Right.
And because what my thought was that, well, there is so much weird information out there, we gotta mobilize, we gotta counter it and all that kind of stuff. Which to some extent you do, but also what I realized very, very quickly was all you're doing is just like, I think for the most part, all you're doing is just stressing yourself out. Like it's a hard and humbling realization to go, you're probably actually not changing any minds. So my approach to that has definitely changed where it's like, I'm not going to be as overtly confrontational about that stuff. I think that there's a different approach, and largely that actually has nothing to do with other people. That just has to do with me maintaining my own positive energy, because we're all just trying to navigate this thing that none of us know how to navigate. And what no one wins if all that's happened at the end of this is I've completely burnt out and collapsed in a heap. So,
Yes. Yeah, then you're no
somewhat
good to anyone.
self-regulation. Yeah, and also you've really got to pick the hill to die on, and I'm just like, you know, I reckon that there's better battles for me to fight than trying to argue on the side of science. I think science can probably do that itself.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
feel like that the people that are just so wrapped in the conspiracy theory stuff, they're not going to hear it. And I think that that's something that I had to really reel myself in on, was like, when is it worth engaging with someone about whether it's about like, hi, no, white supremacy isn't just a thing that people made up. Like, it is a literal system that is in play, that when you open your eyes, you can see it. Same thing with science.
exactly.
Like, when you open your eyes,
Yep.
you can see it. You can say that you don't see it, but I mean, I also have a 4-year-old who tells me that things don't exist the way I see them either. And you know what? Everybody has their own reality, but you know, you can't change another person's reality because of that.
No.
Because if it's really real to them and they're closed to it, then it ain't happening.
Yeah, and it's also about it's also about, do I contribute anything meaningful to this conversation? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, is anything? Because if I think that's where, like, social media is really, really interesting in terms of humility. Just goes right out the window. And that's something I've personally got to keep in check, which is like, does my view on this actually matter? Does it drive a conversation? Does it drive a conversation forward? And I think does it drive a conversation forward? And also in an attention economy, am I the person to be taking up that chunk of a person's attention? You know what I mean?
And I gotta say, man, like, and not to generalize, but kudos to you being a white man and taking that step back and having, like, because I think white guys get a lot of shit for just always going into it. And I'm gonna say it's probably because you're a bass player and it's some of the most communal
Probably.
people that I know. But I mean, it's a certain type of personality, right? You said, even one of the things that you said at the beginning when we were just talking about music is like, your mindset is to be of service, and I'm the same
Yeah.
way. And I think that is such an important component to come to life with, and I think that that's one of the reasons that you and I got along instantly. I mean, you like test piloted this whole like technology thing with me today, because you're just like, yeah, fuck it, let's just figure it out, you know.
Is it still working, by the way?
It is. I'm glad you asked that, because my laptop battery, this is an old laptop. I'm going to plug in my laptop. I can still hear you. You're just not going to see me, because I'm going to climb under my desk and get my laptop cord. Welcome to Hello, I Am Human, everyone. I have to put my human ass under desk. So while we do that, you get to pick the next topic.
Oh, okay.
You ready? I'm going under the desk.
I'm
just kidding. You don't have to. No pressure. Can you hear me okay?
Thank God. No,
but like, just speaking of, is my audio totally weird? But just like, speaking of humility, like, how is that something you've always just kind of been? Have you always just been kind of a chill, open-minded, humble guy?
No, not in the slightest. No. That's actually no, and truthfully, that's actually something that I've had to really seriously work on, and it's still a struggle sometimes, to be perfectly honest, because I sometimes, like all of us, get like real bullheaded and think I'm right about stuff. But no, that is definitely something that I have to work on. Especially not so much in a musical environment, but but it more in general sort of societal terms.
Oh yeah.
Humility and all that is something that I try and practice more often, especially especially now, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just because it's, you know, I need to do it for my own mental well being. But when I was in my 20s and stuff like that, oh my god, this is the biggest arrogant asshole there is. There's a couple of people actually watching this video who might say that I'm still like that, but I've just seen a couple of names pop up of people I know who are probably like, nah, he's still an arrogant asshole. It
He's
is
still
true,
an arrogant shit.
but only when I need to be. No, I think a lot of that has just come from like the past couple of years, like sort of the past 5 or 6 years. I have started working with really, really, really good musicians, like really good musicians, like Greta Zilla, who I have played with for 6 years now, is honestly one of the country's best songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
She's unreal, and just so you can't help but be humble in that situation.
Right.
And you can't help but want to. I think being put in a bunch of situations where the natural course is to just take a step back and facilitate and sort of get out of the way of greatness really, really helped me with that.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah. Damn, that
you
was
know,
you got some quotable stuff in here.
sometimes it
Ev-
sometimes happens.
You don't even have 4 beers in you. This isn't even 4 beer
No, I
wisdom
haven't even
time.
had 4 beers yet. No, no. Lest we not talk about some
No,
patented 4 beer wisdom.
we'll skip over that. We'll just keep that in DMs. But
Yeah.
no, but I think that's the best artists to me are the ones that are absolutely amazing and just the nicest people. Carlos Santana, I talked about like bumping into him the one time when I was working at Chicago Music Exchange. I literally bumped into him, and like
Mm.
he was like opening the door for me when I was like coming back in for lunch, and it was just like he was just like such a nice, like he's just such a genuine, like humble, cool person. Like, man, I love that.
I think it's and one of the things that I talk about with, so there's kind of like there's like 10 dudes that I know, um dudes and gals who are doing a lot of the gigs that I'm kind of on, and are doing a lot of the sort of the bigger tier kind of country things in Australia. And the thing that I identify with the most, and this has been a really, really good thing to kind of model myself on, is that it's all relatively blue collar. So when I was in my 20s and I was playing in like the Van Halen tribute show, and I was in the prog metal band and all that, and the goal was to be like big and famous and all that kind of stuff, it just fuels the ego. Like it just
Mm-hmm.
ramps that fire up to, go out and be the guy and party and be as loud as humanly possible and all that kind of
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But now that I'm playing with people who like, so Damien, the guy I was talking about before, he has often said he's like, he approaches it exactly the same way as when he was a builder's labourer.
Mm-hmm.
Music, like it's really, really super blue collar. It's a service industry. So
Right.
you're just around these people who are not there to pump up their own egos and make it about them. And actually, to the point
Right.
now where when somebody like that comes into the circle, it actually feels a little bit weird, you know.
Oh yeah.
So it's also just hanging around with people who have already already sorted that part of their ego out. You can't help but
Yeah.
model that, and just a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
therapy really helps as well. You
Hey
know,
man, yeah, you can't snooze on therapy. That it's there for a reason. But I
I
completely
am.
agree with you. I think that. Mhm.
Sorry, go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say that. I think that you really hit the nail on the head about like the kind of people that you're surrounding yourself with. When you're a teenager and you hear your parents or somebody say that you are who you hang with, you just kind of blow it off. But with a little self-awareness and maturity, you can really see that the people that you hang around with really matter. And I definitely went through that complete ego, just being the loudest, craziest asshole I could possibly be. Especially, I feel like that I also approached it a little bit differently because I'm a girl, and like I had more, I needed to do it a little bit
Mm.
more to show them I wasn't girly. I was tough. I'm a big, mean badass, all 5'4" of me. And, and, yeah, it really just matters who you're willing to hang around with. And I think that I hope that COVID has shown that for a lot of people. But I know that just age has really done that to me. Like I'm not about that. And
No.
I can, I can jive with most anybody. There's not a lot of people that I can't hang with because I have a tendency to always see the best in people and always want to bring out the best in people, which is why I think I'm drawn to music production. And,
Yeah.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be like hanging out with them, you know? Like I need people in my life that are trying to be better people, trying to work through their stuff, that are feeding their higher self and not their ego. And like that's just the kind of people that I like to roll with.
Yeah, me too. And I actually find that I actually find that I personally operate better when I'm in those circles. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like diet, right? Like it's I
Mm-hmm.
I am not I am very, very selective about the people that I sort of hang out with. So I try and have a good sort of social diet. Like anybody that knows me real well knows that I probably only have about like 5 or 6 people who I genuinely would like. I have a lot of obviously musician people, but like there's only 5 or 6
Mm-hmm.
who I'm going to get on the horn with and go, hey, let's go catch a gig or grab a coffee or stuff like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
really, really try and make sure that those people are people who are going to uh, who I am going to be my best version of myself with, if that sort of
Right. Yes.
makes sense. You know, and they're all very, very similar. You know, it's low ego, it's low ego, high intelligence. You know, deep thinking sort of people is who I tend to
Mm-hmm.
gravitate towards more now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is quite an interesting sort of process to talk about this stuff out loud because I'm like, oh yeah, you know, it's like realizations on air.
Oh yeah, that's half the fun of the show. If I'm not learning something when I'm doing an episode, like what am I doing? Like
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
that's really the fun stuff in life. And I've always loved the Brene Brown thing ever since I heard it about the people you can truly trust with your heart. Like it should be on like a 1 inch by 1 inch square of paper. But I also feel like I was another one where like I had just this huge group of friends from like being in a band, and especially when this is
Mm,
mostly when I was living in my hometown. But then I stopped managing the bar. I decided that I was going to take a break from drinking. I quit doing all the drugs and partying and all of that. And I just very intentionally just shrunk my group smaller and smaller. And then I moved away from home. And when I would come home to visit, I made such a big attempt to like, all right, hey everybody, we're gonna be at the bar on this night, and everybody would come and we'd all get together. And then it got to the point where when I would show up, I wouldn't even I wouldn't even like announce that I was coming home because it was like I wanted to see my dad. I was like, if I have 2 days, I'm gonna see my dad, my brother, and Wick.
yeah.
That's all I would have time for, and that's really just kind of how it started rolling. Like now, all I've got is my brother and my Wick and a few other little friends there. But yeah, I think you always think it's a little weird, maybe like when you're young, when people like have such a small circle of friends. But man, I've got some fucking great friends. Like,
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like it's definitely quality over quantity.
yeah.
And the people thing, like it one of the wonderful things, I'm going to tie this all back. One of the wonderful things about having a day job is that musically I can prioritize the people on the gig a lot higher. So
Mm.
So, have you are you across sort of like the concept of like the gig triangle?
No, tell me.
All right. So, you got a triangle, right?
Yep.
And you've got something on each end. On one end is the people, on
Mm-hmm.
the other is the pay, and on the other is the music and all that kind
Mm-hmm.
of stuff. And you really need to have two of three of those for the gig to be worthwhile. And this actually goes for anything, right?
Right.
Um, but one of the wonderful things about having a relatively secure day job is that I can prioritize the people and the people and the music
Right.
over the money. So the first thing I'll ask when somebody's like, "Hey, do you want to do this festival? Do you want to do this tour? All that kind of stuff." The very first thing I'll ask is who's on the gig.
Right.
Are they a killer musician? Are they someone who is a friend? Are they somebody who I've wanted to get to know for ages? Um, and I can just prioritize people,
Yeah.
and it's a really it's a good way to it's a good way to operate, because it also means like I can then do a gig that's like, I've got some stuff coming up at the back end of the month that I'm probably going to make like $50 off the show, but I'm doing it
Right.
because the guy who plays guitar is not only one of the most witty and insightful guys I know, but he's also a
Mm-hmm.
killer guitar player. So it's like, well, I can do that, and not have
Yeah.
to worry about how I'm paying my power bill the next week.
Yeah. That's exactly where I'm at in life is like, just, I'm not doing it for money. It's like you and I have talked about this. Like, I have no interest in monetizing this show. Does it need to make me money at some point? That would be nice because it costs me money right now to make this show,
Mm.
but like, that's not what I don't care about that. I just want to like talk to all of these people that I think are cool and interesting. And so here we have it. I made a little show that does that, and that's my only goal with it. I just want to talk to people because I enjoy talking to people. And I had the epiphany when Javier Sanovis had me on his show. I was like, that I don't have to wait for people to like come to Chicago. You just do it remotely.
Do it online.
And I it's not like we would have ever gotten a talk that was like, well, the next time you're in Chicago, Zach, let's do that. Like, when in the hell is that going to happen? But for real,
Yeah.
the next time you're in Chicago, we're fucking hanging out,
Yeah.
bro.
Well, yeah. I mean, if I'm ever, it is currently illegal for me to leave my country.
Yeah, well, don't do that.
So, so I
It
reckon I
doesn't
might
have
not.
to be this
And
one.
it might not be this decade. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. I have a trip to
Yeah.
Thailand booked in. I was talking to Al Robinson, who you had on the
Hmm.
podcast a while ago, about this. That like I had this trip to Thailand booked in. That's just like because I haven't taken a holiday in, honestly, I reckon it's been like 6 years really since
Yeah,
I've taken
right.
like a trip anywhere. The last like sort of major trip I took was to San Francisco, and that was for work.
Hmm.
So like I've had this Thailand trip locked in for ages, and just every time it's like, I don't reckon that's going to happen until like 2022 now, which is a bummer because I need that trip like
Oh, dude.
des-
Yeah,
desperately.
like real talk though. Like, I haven't been home since 2019 when my dad died was like the last time I was home. And before that, we hadn't gone anywhere since we'd had kids. And so last August we went, there's this little like beach town that's about an hour and a half drive from Chicago that we had gone to, which was great. We like rented a house with with Tanya's parents, and so it was our whole pod, our quarantine pod, all went and rented this house, and we just like got takeout from the restaurants because they were doing their COVID thing, and which was perfect with little kids. But we were just having the best time. It was just fantastic. And Tanya and I realized that it's like, oh my God, we hadn't been gone anywhere since when we had gone to New Orleans, like on a vacation, like baby shower to North Carolina didn't count. That's not like a real trip with your like super pregnant wife, like driving down to see your family. But like, yeah, we hadn't gone on a vacation in so freaking long. And like, oh my God, all I want to do is like get on a plane and go somewhere. And it's like, no, no, Not anytime soon. That's not happening. Did I lose you? Oh no. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. No. Wait, wait.
Have I got you
Can you
now?
hear me? Yes.
Yep.
There we
Okay.
go.
So for anybody who was just wondering what happened, my phone has a social media timer on it. And
Hmm.
it timed me out in the middle of whatever you were just saying and just went. And then when it's like, yes, 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 let me back on, I need my fix. And then it's like, I'm just going to disable all the audio and everything like that. So maybe we'll just,
That's
maybe
funny.
we'll do a crafty edit
Yeah.
there.
Oh
We'll still
no,
have it
don't
on.
don't worry. Edits are fine.
We'll,
I don't mind about the
we'll
screaming getting messed up. I'll edit it all up in the podcast. That happened to me like one of the I think it was when I was on Javier's show, it did that to me and I was like, oh God. I've had it come up where it was goofing up with like the internet the one time or the
yeah.
display where it kept like dimming it, so every like minute or two I had to keep touching the
Uh,
screen during the episode. I was like, what the fuck is happening? This is Instagram, like I'm on it, like what are you doing, phone? But yeah,
just
like yeah, the vacation thing, you got to do it.
technology. It just needs to work.
Such a big, yeah,
I can't,
come
I
on, magical
can't
little
handle it.
computer. I mean, it
It's
is
just, you know, it's just, it
what do you
just
got planned?
incredibly frustrates me.
What do you have planned tour wise coming up for this summer?
Um, I just had to do the mental math of like when you say summer, you don't mean December, you mean like in the next
Oh,
couple
right,
of
it's not
weeks.
summer. For this winter, for this winter, I forget. Sorry, Northern
Yeah.
Hemisphere. My bad.
This time
What
difference
an
stuff.
asshole.
Um, a guy that I work with who's his name's Andrew Swift. He's got an album coming out imminently soon, I think in the next couple of weeks. So we've got a couple of shows booked in to sort of support that album launch. I've got a lot of one-off things with people coming up, so there's quite a lot of music to learn.
Hmm.
It's all kind of music at the moment is really, really funny, and actually, my musical existence is really, really funny because there's not a huge amount of like you're going to go on the road with this person for 3 or 4 weeks. It's a lot of like
Right.
it's it's definitely like a quantity game. Like it's
Hmm.
I'll probably play with like 7 or 8 different people in the next sort of 2 months. So it's a lot of that. And then yeah, so it's pretty well booked solid until about yeah, probably like August. And then I know that a couple of people who I've done albums with have got albums that um so yeah, so COVID was really, really funny in that I've got like a bunch of albums that I played on in 2019, none of which have come out yet. Um, so
Oh, right.
all of those are now starting to come out, and everybody's starting to plan like album tours. And I mean, I did a project. I recorded an album sort of in the back end of 2019 for this songwriter, Nevada native, named Jen Mize, and she lives sort of in the northern part of the country, and she's doing like this 8 piece sort of Tedeschi Trucks esque soul revival kind of thing that is really, really cool. And it's just like it's all my favorite musicians are in that band. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we were just before I jumped online with you, we were just talking about so there's a whole bunch of questions that we had to answer because we're doing festival applications and all that kind of stuff. And because it's a band full
Hmm.
of just absolute bizarre weirdos, do you reckon that the poor woman could get a straight answer out of any of us? Like, honestly, it was just like the most bizarre, random shit ever. And then she sort of had to like subtly drop the look. I don't give a shit about the answer to these questions, but I just need them for like a festival application. So it's
Just answer the fucking question. Yeah.
Just answer the question, you fucking idiots, for the love of God. So I'm really hoping, I'm hoping that album comes out soon, and that project sort of, that's a big logistical issue, that project, because there's 8 of us in the band, and we all live in different states. So there's a lot of like travel and all that kind of stuff involved. Yeah, there's like me and the guitarist, Mitch Power, who's chef's kiss, that guy can play guitar, are in Victoria, and then the other guitarist and a bunch of people are in New South Wales, and then Jen's obviously in Queensland, so it's like 1 billion kilometres between all of us. So hopefully that one starts to get some legs soon too, because that's actually the one thing where I'm like actually part of the band. Like it's not like a sort of hired gun thing. Like I'm an actual band member. So which is actually kind of like not a first for me, but it's a rarity. So I'm excited about that one.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, bass players, you guys, a good bass player is a hot commodity. Like whenever we would I've got all the guitars hanging on the wall opposite the wall that I'm facing. And Tristan kind of gravitates to the bass sometimes. And I was like, please God, let me raise a bass player, because I swear to God, it's the hardest position to fill, like finding a good bass player. We've like had so many different bass players in so many different bands that I've had in Chicago. It was easy for me back in North Carolina, so I was like, oh, I just hire Wick, and he and I have been in, I think, 5 or 6 bands together. And yeah, and even now, like my bass player Dan, like he and I play in 2 bands together, and I have one other bass player that I was in multiple bands with. Like I feel like drummers and bass players just, if you're a good combo, you just kind of bounce around different gigs together.
Yeah, it definitely, it's real funny because I play with like a lot of different drummers, and when you're with a good one, it's amazing. There's a guy named Steve Fernley who I'm lucky enough to get on a lot of gigs with, and Steve's been in the industry for like a really, really long time. But you just like, when we're about to get like real music nerdy talky, but like when it's just a commitment to playing. Like when you just commit, whether it's the exact groove, or whether you're sort of, you're floating around or whatever. I just feel better when I rock up onto a gig, because I've told you, I've spoken to you about this before. I never rehearse. Like I get called to do like festival gigs in front of however many thousand people, and never rehearse. So it's really, really good when there's a drummer like that on there that can just lock, because it makes me feel infinitely better. There's nothing when because I sort of have this theory. I was talking to a bunch of guys about this on the weekend, where it's like the bass player gig on a gig like that is a really, really, it's the high stress one, because if the groove's not sort of exactly what's on the record, it's right. You just kind of go like strong and wrong. And if the guitarist is like, as long as the guitarist knows the key, you can kind of play lines and stuff like that. But with the bass, you actually have to kind of know what you're doing. So, it's the high stress one. So anything that can alleviate that level of stress, specifically drum wise, is really, it makes me feel happier. Makes me feel less stressed.
And, you gotta have the musical pairings like that, because it's all about having good connections and good relationships, so you can do the job that you're there to do. And it's amazing how much somebody else's lack of preparation can just like tank your performance. I was just talking about this with somebody else today, but it was about how there's like this gas shortage thing going on right now in the States, and it's not too bad here in Illinois, but in North Carolina it's really bad. And like the one friend was posting about it, was like, why are these people working all this gas, and we learn nothing with the toilet paper, like, and it just made me really think about how this theme that's been going on in my head lately with different things going on, about how people's fear ends up screwing over other people. It's the same thing with like the
Yeah.
lack of preparation. Like when people are, whether it's policies they're putting in place or just hoarding stuff, like it's just such a crock of shit. Like that's just not how I roll at all. And it's like, that's the kind of people I like to have in my life, is people that think about other folks.
Yeah, well, I mean, all of that kind of behavior, I just try and keep this musical because otherwise I'm going to start digging a hole I'm never going to get out of. But
I'm
I'll give
okay
you...
with that.
My whole thing with preparation has a lot to do with who my audience is.
Mm-hmm.
So my audience is not the people in the audience. Like my because I can't make a connection with those people. Like I'm not up front. I don't sing. I'm like right up. I'm like right up the.
Al.
I did think that was great.
Thanks, Al.
That is very, very funny. Like my audience is the people in the band, right?
Yeah.
Like that's who I'm playing with, and so my goal and is when I'm on that gig is to make it's not to play to the people who are in the audience. It's to make sure that the singer or whoever is writing the songs is having a good time,
right?
And it's that sort of, and I think that selflessness kind of is like makes it because I'm wired like that. I don't understand. Like I really struggle when people don't do the legwork because I'm like, but your audience is right. Your audience is right there. Like it's, it's, and you feel it. I think you feel it on a gig. Like it's, it's all just a little bit like tentative and unsure and stuff like that. And the vibe is just, is totally off. So it's, yeah, I try and avoid that as humanly possible. I'm a very, very late prepper. Like if a gig's on Sunday, I'm still definitely learning songs Saturday night, but I'll know them.
Same.
I'll try to anyway.
Same. Yeah, I'm a procrastinator, and like not because I don't care. It's just how my brain functions, and I've done it my whole life, and I always just whip it out at the last like minute, and it works and it goes well. I mean, I can remember doing that in like middle school and grade school, like crushing a project that I like forgot that I needed to do, and then I get an A on it. It's like, this isn't good reinforcement for like spending a lot of time working on something. It's just not how I operate. I feel like I almost need that pressure. But I want to, like, I really like what you said about finding, like, deciding on your audience. Like, I'm still stuck on that. That was so good because I think that I'm taking that away with me tonight, is that shifting your audience. And like, that's what so many people in so many industries and creative fields we're screwing up. We've got our sights set on the wrong audience member. And like, oh man, that's so good, because it's been very easy for me with these last couple projects that I've been working on. Like, we just put out a song, Pamela Maurer and I just put out another Baby Money song. And it was the first project that I feel like I've done in a long time that all we cared about was making something that we were just bananas over. And it was like, no, I don't care if anybody else likes it. That video was so much fun to film. We had so much fun recording the tunes. It was my first mass recording session at the house. And like, oh man, like I just love it. And I'm just super happy with it. And her partner ended up like putting cello on it. It was just so freaking fun. And like, that was it, because the only two people we were concerned about impressing in that moment were each other. I just wanted her to be impressed with what I was, when I was putting down little extra guitar licks, or, the way the vocals got comped, or, whatever we were layering on top of stuff. And she just wanted to be cute for me on the camera. And it was so fun. And so there's that's some killer advice from Zac Watson, y'all. Check your audience.
Check your audience. That's right. There you go.
Yeah, you gotta put that one on a t-shirt, dude.
Yeah, that'll be the one that makes it on the t-shirt. Not
Yeah.
not the 95% of just like random blathering that's like, you know, audience, have you worked in yeah, hi Bernie. So yeah, I have worked in marketing, which is actually really funny because what I have to do what I have to do as a member of a marketing team is actually a lot of times totally counter to what I actually think about audience building. So, you know,
Interesting. And
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
they'd probably be more successful if they just let you do you, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the discrepancy between wanting to have more people versus wanting to have better people. Like I've
Hmm.
spoken to you about this before, where it's like I'm a really really big advocate of that like the thousand true fans theory.
Hmm. Yeah,
You know,
that was
like
great.
I think that especially when you're sort of a when you're an independent creative with access to the biggest audience mankind's ever known,
Hmm.
um, everything is niche. So it's just finding
Yeah.
the people, you know, finding the people that connect with the thing that you do, and not trying to just not just trying to be for everybody. I think if you're trying to be for everybody, you're just not for anybody.
Yeah, it's
You
so
know?
true. A hundred
Yeah.
percent. And you're not being, and
Like,
if you're doing that, you're also not being true to yourself.
yeah, that's exactly right. Because there's always compromises. I have this conversation. It's real funny, right? Because I do work in marketing,
Hmm.
and I work in marketing for a relatively big company. I
Pretty big.
get, yeah, pretty big. I get asked about this a lot. Like, how do you do the most widespread audience reach that I can do? How do I make it so that everybody can see my thing? I get asked about social media marketing a lot. And my advice is
Hmm.
always don't worry about it. Like, just like, you know, because inevitably, the bigger that your audience goes, you have to make compromises on things.
Hmm.
And then suddenly it's like, oh, you know what? I actually can't put this song out because it's going to alienate this segment of people who are in it. And it's like, just, you know, there's 7 point something billion people on the planet. There will be an audience for the thing that you want to do. You just need to work out how to get there. I've read a lot of Seth
Amen.
Godin books. That's why I say that.
He's
You
great.
know,
I get his email every morning.
it's a breath of fresh air. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's
If you
he's
haven't signed
he's
up for Seth Godin's newsletter, folks, get on it. Seth
get
Godin
on
has
it.
like this. Yeah, they vary. It's great. Bless him for writing a daily. I can barely get out one blog post a week, but that's okay. I
I
don't give
tried it
myself
for a
any crap
bit.
about it.
I tried blogging for a bit and I just got
Yeah.
tired of reading my own opinion about stuff. I'm like, I don't care. I want to read what other people think. Like, I know what I think. I have to live with it every day. It's a burden. Please alleviate me. Can somebody smarter than me please send me something to read? Oh, hello, Seth Godin. Great. Thank you. Please, God, release me from this prison. It's what I was thinking. Oh, man. Jesus, like, just, you know.
Well, I enjoy your thoughts, and I'm so glad that you decided to share them with us today. So,
No worries.
what's the best place for everybody to find you online, Zach?
Don't. No,
That works
because there's not
too.
much. There's not much on there. Zac Watson music on Instagram. You'll get
Hmm.
a lot of stuff. You'll get a weird mixture of me playing bass and my dog. Um,
Hmm.
which, you know, if that's your jam, get into that. Otherwise, if you're going to spend your attention on anything, follow some of the singers that I play with. So Greta Zilla, Andrew Swift, you know, follow them instead of me. They're putting out good work.
I dig it. You're so selfless.
I have my moments.
Well, thank you for your time tonight, you beautiful man.
No worries. Thank you very much for yours.
What are you doing the rest of the day?
Um, Probably just continuing my bass string journey, and then I got therapy tonight, so I'll have nothing to talk about because I vented it all with you.
Well, there you go. You can find something new to talk about. Now you got to go really fucking deep at therapy because like we've done
Yeah.
all the surface stuff. Oh
That's
boy,
right.
you're in for a
Get my
fucking doozy tonight.
$250 worth.
You're damn right you're gonna. Well, post some pictures about that bass stuff.
Yeah, I will.
All right, brother. You have a great night.
All right. Catch ya.
Later.